The day began like any other. People went about their routines, walking to work, chatting with friends, stopping at the cafe for their usual cup of coffee. Everything seemed normal. The sun shone brightly over the bustling city, and the streets were filled with the hum of life. However, something felt off. It was subtle, like a whisper in the back of your mind that you couldn't quite place. Jason, a regular guy in his late 20s, stood in line at a grocery store, tapping his foot impatiently. His mind wandered to the meeting he had to attend later that day. He shifted his weight from one foot to the other, eyes scanning the shelves, looking for something to distract him. There was an unexplainable feeling creeping in, a slight unease, like the world wasn't quite how it should be. As he reached the counter, a young woman in front of him was fumbling with her wallet. She was clearly in a hurry, but something about her was different. She seemed tense. Jason noticed her grip tightening around her purse, her face reddening as she searched for her card. It was only a momentary delay, but the anger that flashed across her face was almost too much for Jason to ignore. The kind of anger that seemed out of proportion for something so minor. He glanced at the cashier. She was tapping her fingers on the counter, a slight frown crossing her lips. Was it just him, or did everyone around him seem to be irritated? Jason shrugged it off, telling himself it was just a bad morning. But as he walked out of the store, something gnawed at him. It wasn't just the woman in line or the cashier. It was everyone. Everyone seemed on edge. The moment he stepped outside, a car honked loudly from behind him. Jason jumped, his heart pounding in his chest. He hadn't even realized he'd stepped into the street, but the driver's angry blaring seemed excessive. What's going on today? He muttered under his breath, rubbing his forehead. As he walked to his car, the feeling grew. The city that once felt so familiar now felt like a ticking time bomb. He glanced around, watching people as they walked by. There was something about them that seemed different. It wasn't the way they looked. It was how they acted. Every person he passed had this deep frustration in their eyes, like they were waiting for something to push them over the edge. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something important. Jason tried to ignore it, telling himself it was just a product of his imagination. People were always stressed, right? But as he drove to work, the tension didn't go away. He noticed it in the traffic. The cars swerved more aggressively, the drivers honked their horns constantly, and even the pedestrians seemed more irritable. At the office, things were no better. His coworkers were unusually short with each other. Conversations that usually flowed easily were now tense, filled with sharp words and cold stares. In the break room, two colleagues argued over something trivial, whose turn it was to make coffee. The argument grew louder, more heated, and within moments, it felt like the entire room was about to erupt. Jason stepped away, his stomach turning. Is it just me? He asked himself, feeling a sense of dread creep over him. There was something happening, something that was slowly making everyone, including him, more and more frustrated. But what? As the day dragged on, the unease built. Jason couldn't focus on his work. Every email, every phone call, every passing moment seemed to bring more irritation. And it wasn't just him, it was everyone around him. He saw a colleague throw his phone down in frustration over a missed call. Another slammed their fist against a table. Jason's heart began to race, the pulse in his temples quickening. This wasn't normal. People didn't act like this. It all came to a head when he walked out of the building for lunch. Just as he stepped outside, a woman brushed past him, knocking into his shoulder. Jason spun around, about to say something, but the look on her face stopped him. She was furious. "Watch where you're going," she snapped, her voice sharp, as though Jason had just committed the gravest offense. It was a casual bump, no harm done, but the fury in her eyes was like nothing Jason had ever seen. She glared at him for a moment, then stormed off. What was happening? Jason stood frozen for a moment, his heart racing. The world seemed wrong. This wasn't just a bad day. This was something else. His phone buzzed in his pocket, and he pulled it out to see a message from his best friend, Mark. "You good? You seem off today." Jason didn't respond immediately. Instead, he stared at the screen, his mind racing. Was he the only one feeling this way? Was it just him, or was the entire world on the verge of snapping? He thought about it for a moment, and then typed back, "I don't know, man. Something feels weird. Everyone's so angry for no reason." Mark's reply came quickly. "Yeah, I noticed it too. It's like people are on edge for no reason. You think something's going on?" Jason didn't have an answer. He wanted to believe it was just a strange coincidence. But deep down, he knew that something was wrong. People didn't get this angry over nothing. He thought back to earlier, when he had been in the store. The woman in front of him, her frustration. The cashier tapping her fingers. He had seen this before, but now it was different. It was more intense, more real. He could almost feel the tension building in the air, as though something invisible was forcing everyone to lose control. Suddenly, a memory flashed in his mind. A strange article he had read years ago. Something about human emotions being linked to a hidden power, a power that could be unlocked in moments of intense stress or anger. But no one had ever taken it seriously. It had seemed like nonsense back then. But now it felt like it might be real. Jason shook his head, trying to shake off the thought. It was just a coincidence, he told himself. But deep down, he knew it wasn't. Something had changed. Something was coming. And it had all started with a single, small emotion. The anger, the frustration, the feeling of being pushed just a little too far. As the city buzzed around him, Jason couldn't help but wonder, what was the real cause of all this? Was it just the stress of modern life, or was there something much darker, much more terrifying lurking beneath the surface? Whatever it was, Jason was about to find out. Jason couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, something far bigger than just a few angry people. It had been days since his unsettling experience, and the world around him seemed to grow more tense with every passing hour. The frustration that he'd noticed before had only intensified. It wasn't just in his office anymore. It was everywhere. In the streets, in the grocery stores, at restaurants. People were irritated, short-tempered, and on the edge of snapping. At first, he thought it was just a strange coincidence, but the pattern was becoming impossible to ignore. The more he paid attention, the more he noticed how easily people were triggered. A misplaced glance, a delayed delivery, a missed step. Small things that shouldn't have mattered suddenly seemed like massive offenses. It was as if the whole world had forgotten how to keep their cool. But why? The unsettling feeling he had been carrying around began to grow into an obsession. Jason found himself unable to focus on his work, his thoughts always drifting back to the strange events of the past few days. He spent hours after his shifts reading articles, scrolling through old blogs, and searching for any sign that what he was experiencing wasn't just his imagination running wild. One night, after coming home from a particularly chaotic day, Jason stumbled across an obscure blog post buried deep within the internet. The article was titled "The Hidden Rage of Humanity," and it made a bold claim. The anger humans were experiencing was no accident. It was part of something much bigger, something that had been planned centuries ago. Jason's heart skipped a beat as he read the words. His curiosity piqued. The article went on to describe an ancient experiment conducted by a group of beings far more advanced than humanity, beings from another galaxy who had been watching Earth for centuries. According to the blog, these beings had engineered humanity for a specific purpose, to serve as weapons in a galactic war. But over time, humans had evolved far beyond their creator's control, and their emotions, specifically anger, had become the key to unlocking a hidden power within them. A power so immense that it could turn the tide of any war. Jason leaned forward, his pulse quickening. The article spoke of an energy, a force, hidden deep within the human psyche, waiting to be unleashed at moments of extreme stress or frustration. It suggested that the more humans experienced these intense emotions, the more this energy could be triggered. The result would be devastating, not only for the aliens who had engineered them, but for anyone caught in the crossfire. Was this true? Jason couldn't tell. The article was riddled with theories and conjecture, but it was enough to stir something deep within him. If there was even a fraction of truth to it, then the anger and frustration he was feeling, along with everyone else, wasn't random. It was deliberate. It was building. And whatever was coming next, it was going to change everything. Unable to stop himself, Jason delved deeper into the mysterious claims. As the night stretched on, he found more and more obscure documents, all referring to a similar idea. Humanity was not what it seemed. They were created with a purpose, a hidden agenda that was now beginning to come to light. But what was the truth behind this experiment? And who had left these clues for him to find? The more Jason read, the more he felt the weight of the mystery press down on him. He needed to know more. He needed to understand what was really happening. The next day, he couldn't focus on his job. All he could think about was the article, and the possibility that the entire world was unknowingly sitting on the edge of a disaster. Was the hidden power within humanity real? Could the small irritations people felt be the beginning of something far worse? And if so, what was he supposed to do about it? He decided to track down the source of the article. It led him to a small, obscure research group that called itself the Sentience Initiative. The website was minimal, filled with outdated articles and cryptic messages. But as he scrolled through the content, he found a contact form and a few cryptic words. Seek the truth. Trust no one. It's all connected. Jason's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He hesitated. Could this group have the answers he was looking for? Should he reach out? He had no idea who they were or what they truly represented, but something about their message struck a chord with him. It was too eerie to ignore. He filled out the form with his contact details, describing the strange feelings he had been experiencing and the anger he had witnessed everywhere. He hit send before he could talk himself out of it. The response came faster than he expected. The email was simple. You're not imagining things. We've been watching. Meet us at the abandoned warehouse on Elm Street at 10 p.m. tonight. Bring no one. Trust no one. Jason sat back in his chair, the hair on the back of his neck standing up. What had he just gotten himself into? That night, as the clock struck 10, Jason found himself standing outside the old warehouse, unsure of what to expect. The building was dark, silent, and seemingly abandoned. The city's hum was muffled here, the streets empty and desolate. He glanced around, heart pounding in his chest, as he hesitated at the door. Then, without warning, the door creaked open. A figure stepped out, wearing a long coat and a hood that obscured their face. Come inside, the figure said in a low, calm voice. Jason didn't know whether to trust the person, but the intrigue outweighed his fear. He stepped forward, entering the warehouse. Inside, the atmosphere was cold, and the air felt thick, as if something hidden was watching them. A few others were already inside, standing in the shadows, their faces unreadable. The figure who had called him there spoke again. You've noticed, haven't you? The anger, the tension. It's not just a coincidence. You've been feeling it, haven't you? It's in the air, in the people around you. Jason nodded slowly, unable to speak at first. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. We are part of a group that's been monitoring the effects of this hidden power for years, the figure continued. You're not the first to notice, but you are one of the few who are starting to understand what it means. The question now is, are you ready to learn the truth about humanity's origins? Jason swallowed hard. This was it, the moment he had been waiting for, or perhaps dreading. Whatever was coming, he knew one thing. There was no turning back. Jason stood still in the dimly lit warehouse, feeling the weight of the moment press down on him. The mysterious figure before him, their face still hidden under the hood, stepped back, as if waiting for him to respond. He didn't know what to say. His mind was spinning, trying to process everything. The pieces were falling into place, but the bigger picture still eluded him. Are you ready to learn the truth about humanity's origins? The figure repeated, their voice low and measured. Jason hesitated. His instinct was to run, to escape from the eerie situation, but there was a pull inside him, a desire to understand, to finally make sense of everything that had been happening. He nodded slowly, his heart pounding. What do you mean, humanity's origins? He asked, his voice shaky. The figure stepped forward, motioning for him to follow. Without saying another word, they led him to the far corner of the warehouse, where a few others stood, silently observing. It was clear they were waiting for something. Jason felt a shiver run down his spine as he followed them. One of the others, a man with short-cropped hair and a serious expression, gestured for Jason to sit on a nearby crate. You've seen it, haven't you? The man asked, his voice steady but filled with urgency. The rage, the frustration, it's everywhere, and it's growing. And it's not just a random flare of anger. It's the beginning of something much bigger. Jason sat down, trying to absorb the gravity of their words. He had noticed it, the strange, unexplainable anger in people, the way small irritations were triggering such intense reactions. He'd thought it was just a part of the modern world. Stress, pressure, anxiety. But now, after everything he had learned, it seemed much more deliberate. The man continued. It's been happening for years, but recently, the anger has reached a tipping point. It's not just an emotional response anymore. It's a signal to activate something deep within humanity. A hidden power. Jason blinked, trying to wrap his mind around the idea. A hidden power. What kind of power? Another person in the group, a woman with dark eyes and a calm demeanor, spoke up. We've discovered that humans were never meant to be ordinary. You've heard the stories of human potential, right? Well, it's not just talk. There's a power buried deep within every human being, and it can be unlocked, but only under extreme emotional stress, especially anger. Jason's pulse quickened as the pieces started to fit together. His frustration, his unease, it wasn't just a random feeling. It was something bigger. And the anger he'd seen in others, the tension building everywhere, it wasn't just the result of a bad day. It was part of a much larger design. So, what? People are just being triggered, Jason asked, his voice barely a whisper. Triggered to do what? The man who had spoken earlier took a step forward. It's more than just being triggered. You see, humanity was engineered by an alien race, one that has been watching us for millennia. They created us to be weapons meant to fight in a war that we have no knowledge of. But somewhere along the way, humans evolved beyond their control. Our minds, our emotions, became unpredictable. And now, our creators are terrified. Jason stared at him in disbelief. Weapons? Engineered by aliens. It sounded insane, like something out of a science fiction novel. But the anger he had felt, the strange energy in the air, it all began to make a horrible sort of sense. The woman continued, her voice calm but filled with urgency. The alien race that created us, they've been keeping us under surveillance for centuries. They knew that one day we would unlock our true potential. And now that day has arrived. The emotional triggers, the anger, the frustration. It's all part of a plan to unlock the power inside us. Jason felt a chill run through him. What kind of power are we talking about? What can humans do with this power? The man who had spoken first answered, his tone serious. We can do things beyond your wildest imagination. Control elements, manipulate energy, even alter reality itself. But there's a catch. He paused, as if weighing his words carefully. The more we unlock, the more we risk losing control. If too many people tap into this power at once, we could cause a catastrophic event. The planet could be destroyed, or worse, Our creators could come back and wipe us out entirely. They were never supposed to let us evolve beyond them. And now, they're getting desperate. Jason's mind raced, trying to digest everything. The idea of humans having this kind of power, it was mind-blowing. But the danger that came with it was just as terrifying. Could humanity really control such power, or would it consume them, just as the aliens feared? The woman spoke again, her voice calm but filled with an underlying tension. That's why we've been monitoring these outbursts of anger, these moments of frustration. They're the key. Each time someone gets upset, each time they feel that surge of emotion, an immense energy is unlocked. The more people experience it, the stronger it gets. And right now, it's escalating faster than we can track it. Jason's thoughts spiraled. If what they were saying was true, then this was bigger than just anger. It was about survival. Humanity wasn't just facing a crisis of emotions. They were on the verge of awakening a power that could change everything, for better or worse. He opened his mouth to speak, but before he could, the man with short-cropped hair cut him off. You're not alone in this. There are more people like you, those who are starting to feel it, starting to understand. But we need to move quickly. If we don't learn to control this power, we may never get the chance. The aliens are watching, and they won't hesitate to step in. Jason looked around at the group, the weight of their words sinking in. He had come here searching for answers, and now he had them. Answers that were more terrifying than he could have ever imagined. The hidden power within humanity, the alien creators, the rising anger, it was all connected. But what could he do with this knowledge? Was he ready to be part of the solution? Or was he simply too small, too insignificant to make a difference? Then what's our next move? Jason asked, his voice steady despite the chaos churning inside him. He knew there was no turning back now. Whatever was coming, it was too late to walk away. He had already been drawn into something far larger than himself. The man who had spoken first nodded grimly. Now we fight. We stop the power from overwhelming us. We take control before they do. Jason's heart pounded as he realized the full weight of his decision. The road ahead would be dangerous, and there would be no easy answers. But one thing was clear. Humanity's future depended on what they did next, and Jason had a part to play in that future, whether he was ready for it or not. Jason stood at the edge of the group, his mind racing. The information he had just learned had shattered everything he thought he knew about humanity, about his own life. He had always considered himself an ordinary person, someone just trying to get by. But now he was thrust into something far beyond his understanding, something far more dangerous than he could have ever imagined. The man who had been leading the conversation, the one who had explained the alien origins of humanity, stepped forward. There's no turning back now. You're part of this, whether you want to be or not. The power is awakening, and we need people like you to help control it. Jason shook his head, trying to wrap his mind around it. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I'm just one guy. How can I possibly help control something so huge? The woman, who had spoken earlier about the power hidden within humanity, gave him a steady look. You're not alone in this. There are more like you, people who have felt the pull, people who've noticed the change. It's just a matter of finding them and training them to harness this power before it gets out of control. Jason let out a deep breath. And what happens if we fail? Everything we've built, everything we know, will collapse. The man said, his voice grave. If the power is unlocked fully, there are no guarantees. It could lead to the destruction of humanity. Or worse, we could become pawns in a war we know nothing about. The aliens will reclaim us, and that's something we can't let happen. The weight of his words settled heavily in Jason's chest. The pressure to stop this from spiraling out of control felt like a 1,000-pound weight pressing on his shoulders. But even as doubt gnawed at him, he knew there was no turning back. There was no way to unlearn what he had just discovered. What do we do now? Jason asked, his voice more certain than he felt. The woman nodded, her expression resolute. Now we start gathering those who are starting to feel it. There's no time to waste. The more people we can reach, the better. We need to create a group that can work together to keep this power from tearing us apart. Jason felt his pulse quicken. But how do we even know who's starting to feel it? How can we tell who's a potential, whatever we're calling this power? The man stepped forward, his eyes hard and calculating. We've been tracking the signs. People who experience extreme frustration, stress, or anger, their emotions spike, and the energy within them begins to surge. If they're aware of it, if they know how to tap into it, they can begin to control it. But most people don't know what's happening, and that's why they're dangerous. If they lose control, it could be catastrophic. Jason's mind whirled with the possibilities. Anger, frustration, irritation. They were emotions everyone experienced. What if someone, just an ordinary person like him, snapped in the wrong moment? What if the power was unleashed and they couldn't control it? Okay, Jason said after a long pause, his voice steady despite the storm in his head. So what's the plan? The man who had been leading the conversation spoke again. We need to find those who are feeling the strain, those who have experienced these bursts of emotion. We'll begin by tracking down the individuals who are most at risk. But we need to move fast. As the anger spreads, so does the power. And soon we won't be able to contain it. If we wait too long, the entire human race could be on the brink of disaster. Jason didn't fully understand what they meant by tracking down individuals, but it was clear that time was of the essence. He had to act quickly, or everything they were trying to prevent would become inevitable. The woman stepped up beside him. We can show you how to tap into it, how to control the power. But you need to trust us, and you need to be willing to accept that this will change you. Jason swallowed hard. The last few days had already changed him in ways he couldn't quite understand. How could he resist the chance to learn more? To actually be able to control the power that was awakening inside him. I'm ready, he said, the words feeling heavy as they left his mouth. I'll do whatever it takes. A small nod from the man. Good. We'll start with training. But first, we need to find others like you. Others who are starting to feel the shift, who are starting to experience this power. Over the next few days, Jason became part of the group, learning as much as he could. The training was intense, and the process of understanding the hidden power within him was both exhilarating and terrifying. At first, it felt like nothing more than a strange force that surged through him when he became frustrated or angry, something that he could barely control. But slowly, with each passing day, he began to understand how to direct it, how to focus it. It wasn't easy, and it took everything he had just to stay calm while the emotions raged inside him. But little by little, he could feel the power becoming a part of him. As he trained, Jason also began to notice other people who seemed to be experiencing the same strange energy. People in his life, friends, co-workers, even strangers, were showing signs of the power that the group had warned him about. Some were more aware of it than others. Some were scared of it. And some were starting to embrace it, seeing it as a gift rather than a curse. Jason felt a mix of dread and awe as he realized how widespread this was becoming. The group moved quickly, reaching out to as many people as they could, teaching them how to control the power before it controlled them. But it wasn't enough. As the anger continued to rise, so did the power within humanity. It became harder to contain, harder to focus. The risk of a worldwide collapse loomed closer every day. One night, as Jason sat alone in a quiet room, his thoughts racing, the woman from the group, Sophie, approached him. Jason, we've reached a tipping point, she said quietly. It's happening faster than we predicted. We need to take action now. What action? Jason asked, his voice filled with uncertainty. Sophie's eyes were grave. We need to confront the source of all this, the alien creators who engineered humanity in the first place. They've been watching us, and they're ready to make their move. If we don't stop them, Everything will fall apart. We can't let them take control. Jason's heart pounded. He had thought the worst was behind them. But now it seemed like the real battle was just beginning. The power within humanity was awakening, and now it was time for them to face the creators who had set it all in motion. The fight for humanity's survival was far from over, but Jason knew one thing for sure. Whatever came next, he was ready. The tension in the air was thick, heavier than anything Jason had felt before. Sophie's words echoed in his mind as he stood there in the quiet room, trying to prepare himself for what was coming next. Confronting the alien creators, the ones who had engineered humanity to be their weapons, felt almost impossible. It sounded like a science fiction movie, but Jason knew, deep down, that the world was about to change forever, and he was right in the middle of it all. "Are you sure we're ready for this?" Jason asked, his voice steady, though the uncertainty in his chest refused to go away. They weren't just fighting for control over the power within them. They were fighting for their very existence. Sophie's expression was hard to read, but her eyes were filled with resolve. "We don't have a choice, Jason. The power inside us is growing too fast. If we wait much longer, we'll lose control completely, and the aliens will return to finish what they started. If they regain control of us, humanity as we know it will cease to exist. We have to strike first. We need to take the fight to them." Jason nodded slowly, his pulse quickening. The weight of their mission seemed impossible, but they couldn't ignore the truth. The alien creators had underestimated humanity. They thought they could control the power, but now humanity had the upper hand. They just had to figure out how to use it. "I'm in," Jason said, his voice firmer than he felt. "Let's do this, but how do we even know where they are? How do we find them?" Sophie glanced over her shoulder, where the others in the group were preparing for what was to come. There was a sense of unity among them now, even as fear and uncertainty lingered in the air. "We've been tracking signals, patterns, things that don't make sense. We've discovered anomalies in the atmosphere, irregularities in the electromagnetic fields. They're close. We've pinpointed a location." Jason's mind raced. The clues, the hidden patterns they had been following, they had finally led them to a place. But it still didn't feel real. They were going to confront beings from another galaxy. The thought sent a shiver through his spine. "We leave tonight," Sophie said, her voice resolute. "No more waiting. We can't afford to give them a chance to prepare. We move fast, and we hit hard." The plan was set. The team, a small but determined group of people who had been training to control the growing power inside them, would make their way to the site of the anomaly, a hidden facility, deep underground, where the alien creators had supposedly been operating in secret for decades. As the night fell, Jason couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and adrenaline. He had never imagined his life would come to this, but now there was no going back. The power inside him, it wasn't just something to be feared, it was something to be controlled. He wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for humanity's future. The journey to the facility was quiet, each member of the group focused and determined. Jason could feel the energy pulsing within him, a low hum that grew louder as they neared their destination. They were getting closer, and the anticipation in the air was suffocating. Finally, they arrived at the location, a seemingly ordinary patch of forest, far from any city or populated area. The team approached a large, unmarked building hidden beneath the earth, its entrance concealed by layers of earth and thick foliage. The air here felt charged, different, as if something powerful was just beneath the surface. Sophie gave Jason a quick glance. "This is it," she said, her voice tense. "They're inside. And so is the power we've been looking for. We need to move fast. Once we're in, there's no turning back." Jason nodded, the weight of the moment settling on his shoulders. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest as they approached the entrance. He wasn't sure what awaited them inside, but he knew they had to do this. Humanity's future depended on it. The door to the underground facility slid open with a soft hiss, revealing a dimly lit hallway that seemed to stretch endlessly before them. The air inside was cool, but there was an unmistakable heaviness to it, as if the walls themselves were holding secrets. "Stay alert," Sophie whispered, leading the way. "The alien creators may not be here physically, but they've left behind something much worse. Technology capable of manipulating the power within us. We can't let them use it against us." As they moved deeper into the facility, Jason's senses were heightened. Every sound, every shift in the air felt like a warning. They'd reached a large open room, its walls lined with strange machines and alien technology that Jason couldn't even begin to comprehend. In the center of the room stood a towering structure, a cylindrical device, glowing faintly with an eerie, unnatural light. "That's it," Sophie said, her voice filled with awe and fear. "That's the source of the power. They've been using it to monitor us, to amplify the energy they've placed inside humanity. It's feeding off us, growing stronger every day." Jason stepped forward, his heart racing. He could feel the power within the room, buzzing in the air, a presence that seemed to reach out and touch him. It was intoxicating, wild, and untamed. For a moment, Jason almost felt like he could lose himself in it, but he quickly reminded himself of the stakes. "We need to destroy it," Jason said, his voice low but resolute. He turned to the group. "If we don't, everything we've been fighting for, everything we've worked for, it's all for nothing." Sophie nodded. "We'll need to overload the system, use the power within us to short-circuit their technology. It won't be easy, but it's the only way." The plan was set into motion. One by one, each member of the group began to focus, drawing on the power inside them, tapping into the anger, the frustration, the energy that had been growing within humanity. It was overwhelming, but Jason had learned how to control it. He concentrated, pushing aside the fear and uncertainty that threatened to swallow him whole. This was the moment. The energy inside him surged, the power building until he could barely hold it back. With a deep breath, Jason directed the power toward the machine. The others followed suit, each contributing their energy, until the room seemed to hum with a deafening intensity. The alien technology began to crackle, the air thick with the energy they were releasing. It was working. Then, with a sudden, deafening roar, the machine exploded in a burst of light and energy. Jason's vision blurred as the force of the explosion sent them all flying backward. The ground shook beneath them, and the walls seemed to tremble as the energy they had unleashed tore through the facility. For a moment, everything was still. Jason slowly opened his eyes, his body aching from the blast. The room was a mess, wires sparking, debris scattered everywhere. The machine was gone, and with it, the source of the alien power that had been controlling humanity's fate. The group was alive, though battered, their faces a mix of exhaustion and relief. Sophie looked at Jason, her eyes filled with gratitude. "We did it," she whispered. "It's over." Jason took a deep breath, his heart still racing from the intensity of the moment. They had done it. They had stopped the aliens from regaining control over humanity's power. But as he looked around at the wreckage, a new understanding settled in. This was only the beginning. The power within humanity was now unleashed. And while they had won this battle, there would be many more to come. They weren't just fighting for their survival anymore. They were fighting for the future of the entire human race. And whatever came next, Jason knew one thing for sure. Humanity would never be the same again.